Our next topic is all about the guardians of the game. And this is where we're talking about balancing benefits and safety in gaming for minors. Now, one thing is for sure is that we may no longer be teenagers, but we all are screenagers, which is why this particular session actually will get to explore both the positive impacts of gaming on cognitive development for young players, but most importantly also the crucial need to protect them from potential harms. Because it's vital that a community of parents, teachers, regulators, and online gaming companies, they come together and they work together to ensure that the minors can enjoy the benefits of gaming in a safe and a responsible environment. So on that note, what we're about to do is deep dive into the next panel discussion. And this session will be spearheaded by Rameesh Kailasam, Chief Executive Officer, India Tech. And if I could please invite all our speakers along with our session moderator to please come on stage. First up, I'd like to please invite Rameesh Kailasam. Further next, may I please invite Shri Nasimuddin, IAS retired Chairperson, Tamil Nadu Online Gaming Authority. Dr. Niyati Pandey, Assistant Professor and Head, Center for Sports and Entertainment Law, GNLU. And Ms. Ranjana, Adhikari, Partner, IndusLaw. Let's have all our speakers. Thank you so much again for your time and your presence. Well, looks like the audience is also balanced enough right now for this session. Can we bring a round of applause to welcome our amazing, amazing set of leaders, pioneers, and our amazing panelists over here. I'm going to quickly hand it over to Mr. Rameesh. Over to you, sir.
Yeah, okay. Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for joining for this session, important session where we discuss the balancing of the benefits and safety in gaming sector for minors in particular. And we have a great set of panelists today here. In this digital era where in FMCG sector, we used to talk about 3 A's, which is affinity, accessibility, and affordability. And if you look at the gaming sector today, the smartphones have given that to every child. They have access to it, it is affordable, and it is accessible. The other day I was in a railway station and I saw this 1-year-old kid crying, and the mom was trying to pacify the kid by giving a mobile phone with something going around on that. So that's the level of access that has come to minors today, that from the age of 1, you know how to handle a phone. But if you look at gaming, again, it's a paradox. On one side, you have gaming, certain forms of gaming making it into Commonwealth Games and Olympics and so on, and you have India winning medals as well. You need a particular kind of conditioning to win those kind of games. Which includes starting early. You can't be starting after you're an adult. There are gamers who have won the bronze medal who started from the age of 10 and 12. On the other side, you also have the risk of inappropriate content, addiction, and a range of other negativities that are also associated for access at such an early age. So where do you balance it out? Now, if you look at even international studies, like a study by the United Nations commissioned by the Video Games Europe and the Video Game Trade Associations in Australia, Canada, South Korea, US, and so on. There have been different kinds of results that have come in. On one side, it says it builds your adroitness, your cognitive abilities, it boosts creativity amongst people, problem-solving skills. Even the education policy talks about gamification being an important aspect and so on. And on the other side, you have the WHO, which talks about gaming disorder and so on, which has also been debunked by the American Association, which says that that's not the case. So you do see two sides of debates going on in an evolving and emerging technology, which is online gaming. At the same time, you also have positives on one side, which says that we need to build this capacity, this capability, and so on. And on the other side, you have things like the addiction bit and the risk of financial exposures and others coming in as more and more kids get hooked onto it. So we have with us Mr. Nasimuddin from the Tamil Nadu Online Gaming Authority. And as part of, if you look at state governments, and I mean, there are different governments doing different efforts in this direction. And if you look at Tamil Nadu per se, Tamil Nadu has this TNOGA, which is the Online Gaming Authority of Tamil Nadu. they have been doing their own bit of research in this area, and this happens to be the first government initiative where so much of research and kind of engagement with the sector is happening. So I turn to Mr. Nasimuddin. Thank you, sir, for joining us today. And we appreciate the effort that Tamil Nadu is undertaking to increase the awareness for responsible online gaming. And especially, as you can see, it's become an integral part of digital life today as more and more people are engaging in this direction. What are the efforts of Tamil Nadu Gaming Authority to raise awareness, especially amongst children, and also empower those engaged in gaming in a responsible manner? And if you can throw some light on what are you doing in this direction and your experiences, and give your opening remarks in this direction.
Speak from here. Good afternoon, everyone, or rather good evening. Thank you very much for having me here, and I'll be very brief and to the point. I happen to be the chairperson of an authority, which is the one of its kind, the only one in the country, Tamil Nadu Online Gaming Authority. And this was set up in the backdrop of a Justice Chandru committee report. And the government of Tamil Nadu decided to set up such an authority, obviously for some reason. The Chandru committee report, which may not be available in, to all and sundry, but I have seen that report, and it's very disturbing. The findings there with regard to the prevalence and the adverse impact that online gaming is having on our youngsters, especially the minors, is very, very revealing. And therefore, realizing the need for an intervention, the government of Tamil Nadu set up this authority, the Tamil Nadu Online Gaming Authority. Having said this, let no one be under any impression that this authority has been set up with a specific purpose of doing away with the industry or kind of, in a way, restricting the future growth with the industry. That's certainly not our mandate. We are there just to actually make things easy for everyone, including the industry. So be rest assured, we have no such mandate to restrict the growth of the industry in Tamil Nadu. We are there only to regulate it. Regulate it in a manner that while we enjoy all the benefits, including the revenue that it generates, and the entertainment and the relaxation that you get while playing the online game. At the same time, the negative aspect of it is taken care of, is well regulated. Now, one of the things that I come across while discharging my duties is the absence of reliable data. I don't know, this industry has been doing fairly well, and there are a large number of very big players, but there is such a dearth of data. And most of the literature that I get is based on secondary sources, very little empirical data. And if I could urge the industry stalwart sitting over here, please do some empirical studies, have some empirical data. There is no point in going and arguing your case just based on some secondary literature or something or the other. You will get caught behind. And in fact, people who come and interact with us therefore find life very difficult, because whatever little bit that we have done, whatever we are doing is based on empirical data. not only the Chandru Committee report, which the courts found it to be very convincing, in many of its aspects. Not only that, this Tamil Nadu Online Gaming Authority itself has taken an initiative and is in the process of finalizing a very, very, I would say, elaborate and very meaningful study, wherein we have covered more than 150,000 students, 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th, school going, and rest of the all college going. And we have taken care of to kind of cover everyone, right from rural setup to the urban metros, engineering to arts to humanities to even ITIs, IITs, all kinds. And I'm not in a position to reveal much because we are still finalizing the findings of the survey. But certain things are certainly quite, I would say, revealing. Things that we take for granted on the face of it, actually, in reality, it's much worse. I can only share two data. About 21% of our students have observed that online gaming is very negatively impacting their lives and career. 21%. It's a very, very, very big number. The other data that I have is that 9%, close to 9% of students are playing online games of various kinds. I'm not going into real money games or whatever games. They're playing close to 6 hours a day on an average, 9%, and that's a very big number. And still equally disturbing is that about 3 to 3.5% of students are playing online games after midnight till about 5 a.m., which is the peak sleeping hour, and the impact of lack of sleep. So these are data. I mean, we have umpteen number of, I will have about 100 sets and subsets of data, which is very revealing. I'm not going to delve into all that. So there is plenty for us to kind of discuss amongst ourselves and to kind of how to regulate our playing of online games in the best interest of everyone. I mean, let's create an ecosystem where our minors are protected and they do their primary task is to study, to build a career for themselves. Let them, and an 18-year-old is not a matured guy. Let him not fall in trap of all this, all these things, for an adult, okay, I can understand. He can decide for himself. He can rationalize a lot of things. But an 18-year-old guy, but we have made everything available, freely available to him without any questions being asked. And accessibility is not an issue. Everyone has a smartphone, and so it is actually quite kind of a lot of things are happening beneath the surface. We are not aware. Better we wake up. Actually, it is in the long-term interest of the industry itself, because they are going to be your future customers. They will sustain the industry. Let's not kill the golden goose. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. And it's heartening to note that Tamil Nadu Gaming Authority is open for interaction with the industry. It is seeking more data, and more importantly, he's not here to shut you down. So I think that's the positive takeaway, apart from, of course, the fact that Tamil Nadu Gaming Authority is also equally engaged in deep research, and these are important statistics which the industry should take note of while engaging to ensure that these kind of issues are addressed in a holistic manner. I now turn to Dr. Niyati. From the Gujarat National Law University, you recently came out with a wonderful report which was deeply researched on different aspects of how the gaming is impacting, at the same time the positive takeaways and global practices and so on. And since Mr. Nasimuddin did mention about data, the question to you is, if we look at, I mean, from your research standpoint, what does global research or data suggest about internet addiction, gaming addiction, especially for children? And do you have any statistics in this regard that your university has been researching on?
Thank you so much, first of all, for having us here and organizing this convention. Now, as Sir rightly pointed out, that there is dearth of data, and the moment you start doing research, you need to back your data, or your proposals or your conclusions based on certain empirical evidences that are available. And one of the most unfortunate aspects with respect to gaming vis-a-vis internet addiction is the dearth of data. Now, when we started researching, the focal point of our research, or the triggering point of our research, was two things. Number one was the Chinese government coming up with a blanket ban proposal of, not allowing adults also, or, treating adults just as minors and bringing those blanket bans. So our perspective was that, can blanket bans actually work? Like, do they work? Because when you focus on gaming, your question also focuses on internet addiction. So the whole point that comes into picture is that when you come in as an internet gaming disorder, do you focus on internet gaming? Do you focus on internet? Or do you focus on internet gaming disorder? That is the most important question. Is it in silos, or do you study it together, or gaming is subset of internet? And there the challenge comes into picture, that when you start looking into regulation, majority of the regulation is on the gaming and not on the internet. Not at all suggesting that the regulation should be on the internet, but then the question is, where does the focus lie? That, minors consuming internet or minors playing games. So the whole, the idea of, and therefore I've brought in three researchers, primarily, and their data to provide a standard, a framework so as to understand how exactly the research that is there, and not at all suggesting that the research is complete. Now, the first research that I primarily suggest people to read is one that was published in 2022 in the National Institute of Health survey, where it was a comparative literature review of the existing research that has been done. So it was nothing but understanding the empirical researches that is available. And so the cumulative understanding of the meta-analysis was around 21 lakh people that were studied. Now, when you see that global pool that is across countries that became the part of the survey, 26.99% of this population was smartphone addict. 17% was social media addict. 14% was internet addict. 8% was cyber porn addict. And 6% was game addict. So where does the data tell us? It says that gaming is an addiction, or there are chances that it can become addictive, but what is the percent? 6%, compared to 26%. Then we go to a data that was presented with respect to the Chinese mandatory limits. Now that data clearly showed that when they looked into, there was some methodology that was used that can be referred to on by interested participants and readers later on, where they said that there is no evidence that primarily suggests that when China came up with a blanket ban, that minors will not be, allowed to do gaming at night, and then there are restrictive hours of, weekdays this time, weekends this much time. They said that this is absolutely was not at all effective, number one. Number two, it actually led to minors coming up with different ways and techniques to flout the norms. So they said that this was ineffective. Rather, they found that more internet gaming was seen in that particular target group. Then comes the third research that we found out, and it's a report kind of thing, which is Council of Europe's expert group on online addiction risk 2024, published very recently. And you may not read the whole report, just the executive summary and the key findings, and somewhere around the 25th or the 24th finding says this, the few policy measures that exist are most frequent in Asian countries and mainly aim to reduce the time spent on online games among minors, the research on the efficacy of such measures is rare. Primarily, we do not have a research that would back the efficacy of those research. And secondly, existing research shows, whatever research we have, it shows that these measures are ineffective. So it points out two things. Number one, dearth of literature, dearth of research. And number two, whatever research is there, it says that these kinds of measures are ineffective. Now the whole point of quoting these three research is that what do we do next? And the next is, so, the whole report is trying to find out the implications of these three studies primarily, to sum up, because you asked for data. Now, when we talk about India, now that's the global figure. Now, specifically when we talk about India, the situation is more precarious. And as Nasimuddin sir rightly pointed out that, it is a task upon us, probably as an educational institutions or you as an industry, to actually look into and find out data. Now, we are in the midst of coming up with an empirical survey, but then that will take time. Probably before that, if we have sir's data being released, that would be a guiding factor as to, we can also check our methodology for that matter before publishing our research. But then when we talk about India, there is primarily one research, that was the National Mental Health Survey that came up in 2015-16, which said that 7% of the Indian population is addicted to internet or has problematic internet use. It does not mention gaming, but internet use. But then this was 15-16. After that, COVID came into picture, and probably the figure would be higher. Much higher, absolutely. I'll correct myself, much higher because of COVID, absolutely, yes. The second was the AIMS study of 2021. Now, this study can become a focal point primarily because it says that 23% of the Indian adolescents are interested to or have problematic internet usage, whereas 7% are problematic because of gaming. But the backdrop or shortcoming of this research is that it's a very small survey of only the students of the AIMS institute, rather than having a large scale of study or sample size, so that it makes it difficult for us to generalize. So when you ask me as to data, I'll say that we do not have data, and therefore there is a need of data to have a proper policy approach with respect to gaming when we talk about.
Thank you, Dr. Niyati. And it's heartening to note that there are efforts underway from GNLU in this regard, and a data-driven and research-driven approach will complement the efforts of Tamil Nadu Gaming Authority in us as an industry working towards reaching points where we can address the issues that are of concern so that it contributes to long-term growth of the industry in a responsible manner. Turning to Ranjana, Ranjana, we have a legal framework of sorts that came through the MeitY regulations, the amended IT rules 2023 and the digital personal data protection bill, which also has been designed to make digital consumption safer for consumers. What do they say with regard to minors, and in the context of gaming, how would you summarize those?
So with your permission, I'd like to probably start what I have to say with a reaction to what Sir had to say before I go to your response. I'll start by saying, Sir, that I think your conversation today has reposed a lot of faith in everyone over here in the true spirit of what your organization wants to do. And I think it's a progressive example of what different states can sort of look at. I think Tamil Nadu has always been at the helm of recognizing the potential of different industries and putting a balance between consumer interests and what it could do for the economy. So thank you, sir, for sharing those views. I think it's very important in this conversation. The need for the industry to collaborate and come together with the government to give them the right data sets. I think that's the door opened up to everyone in this room to take this as an opportunity to get the right narrative through. Let me wear the hat of not a lawyer, not a policy maker, but actually someone more relevant in this conversation of minors, which is that of a mother. And I think a lot of the statistics that were spoken of over here, as a mother, supremely concerning. There's no doubt about it. But in a country of over 1.3 billion in population, The reality is there are also the other sides of the stories, some of which I have for myself. Ramesh, you mentioned about your experience right at the beginning of the speech of you saw a mother giving screen time to their 1-year-old. Well, I'm one of those. And I find great pride in saying that actually my 5-year-old has learned a lot of problem-solving skills by a lot of the interactive games that she actually has on the iPad that I share with her. And I might be giving one narrative out of thousands that might be in this very room here. So like Sir correctly pointed out, there are those negative data points that have come out. But there are so many different narratives that all of us collectively can put on the positive light, which an authority like the Tamil Nadu authority can weigh in on and come out with a more collaborative, informed decision. As a parent, what is it that really sort of gives me more empowerment, makes me more confident about the regulations? It's giving more parental autonomy where my child is concerned, where the laws are creating a safe environment, right? And I think this is exactly what Sir is alluding to and saying is that's what Tamil Nadu is trying to do. We would love to see the rules that are coming out, and hopefully it will be in the same spirit that we're having this discussion. In terms of what, as a lawyer, in responding to your original question, Ramesh, I think we've got two different bodies of laws that, for the benefit of everyone in this room. Of course, the amended IT rules, 2023, specific to the, online gaming industry, and the more agnostic, the new DPDP, the data protection law. The rules are obviously still awaited them. But there are different facets which do give me confidence that law is progressing with the right mindset where minors are concerned. Both these sets of laws, when they look at what minors are, it's the essential below the 18-year mark, right? I think 2 or 3 themes that really come out in these different new laws that have come out. One is to do with user verification and trying to implement more stringent sort of processes in place. Both the IT rules prescribe it, DPDP also does prescribe it, and hopefully the rules that will follow on will flesh it out more. But a lot of emphasis is sort of being laid on the verification process, which today is more self-led as part of the online gaming industry. Specific to the IT rules, and as and when it does come into its full grandeur and full force, there are other mechanisms also built in to redress concerns, whether it's from parents or whoever in terms of the grievance officers, etc., that need to be appointed, trying to emulate what the OTT platform industry has already done, under the original IT rules. So that's again very forward-looking. Specific obligations in relation to children protection as a part of the due diligence requirements. OGIs will need to look at consciously content which will not be allowed in the form of what is harmful for children. Yes, this is more subjective than objective, but I do have the confidence that as a combination of working with what the self-regulatory bodies might finally come out with, there's going to be clearer direction in terms of sort of, what would be really children's harm. One small thing that I do want to point out for the data protection law, I think the data protection law has a very clear theme of no behavioral tracking where the minors are concerned, parental consent being sought for any sort of processing of data of children. There are more stringent norms in terms of just tracking and targeting children as well. All well thought of, where you look at creating a safer environment for children is concerned. But the little dilemma, and I think this is not just for the online gaming industry, but for any industry out there which is focusing on children as a consumer, the reality is that a lot of safety features, for example, do require the features of a limited amount of tracking for improving just how minors can be safeguarded on the internet. How could they be protected by cyberbullying? I do believe that while the thought is in the absolute right place where policy is concerned, in protecting the child by limiting the amount of, say, tracking that you could do, it is very important to collaborate with the industry, with the tech people to understand what are the features that could have allowed them better to maybe, resolve something like this and kind of create an environment to make sure that some of the things like cyberbullying, etc., which could be even bigger problems in the ecosystem than addiction, are also taken care of. So some sort of exception building, etc., is the hope that we will see in the rules to follow. But I think I'll close it out by saying that both these sets of laws are on the right foot, and with things that the state governments are probably seeking to do, we might have a more holistic system in play.
Thank you, Ranjana. I think it's a great takeaway that states are coming and they're working with their own regulations, but there are also these national level regulations that are coming up which are touching these important aspects. And as we say always, that it's always good that laws complement each other and take away the positions of advantage that are required in a particular law being embedded into the upcoming laws and so on. So I now turn to Mr. Nasimuddin again, and given the fact that, I mean, we have the gaming industry in the room, and what I say is that we always have a collar to catch when they are available in India. But when they are overseas, you don't have that collar to catch. And so how does Tamil Nadu Gaming Authority look at this problem of overseas entity operating, continuing to operate, but I mean, you don't have this kind of leeway available?
No, you are talking about the offshore operators. Yeah, of course. The greater responsibility here would lie with the government of India because of the way our system works. The state governments have limited authority. Nonetheless, in our own ways, we are taking certain initiatives. And one of that is that we are going to fix responsibility on the ISBs, Internet Service Providers. Because the simple point is that you may be anywhere, you may be operating from out of a space, but you need a platform to operate in India or Tamil Nadu. So Internet Service Provider has to be held responsible. And we have already started some, I think we have already taken some action. I can't elaborate much because, these are sometimes, but we have done our bit. But a lot more needs to be done. I know they are a major threat. They are not only depriving us of our revenue, but, they are law unto themselves. And they are taking away a big, chunk of our everything. So it needs to be controlled. And we have done our bit, and we'll be doing it.
Great to hear that, sir. In conclusion, I now turn to Ranjana. Considering that you heard on this offshore operating entities and so on, what is your suggestion? And in interest of time, as short as possible, does the current legal framework enable governments to act on them? And if not, then what is your suggestion?
Sure, Ramesh, I'll look at this from a very legal perspective because it's a very legal, question. The moment you talk about offshore, the reality of life is that a federal law would possibly be the most effective. That's just how the Constitution is designed in terms of, who has what remit in terms of lawmaking and enforcement. The reality is that the state governments and the center are very aligned in this, right? So if I was just to look at what the existing laws are today, especially for content-based gaming, the reality is that it would be great to have a mechanism which is in an all-encompassing law to have these foreign operators also to be in India. Now, I'm not talking about certain illegal platforms. Let's just talk about those ones because the theme of the panel is also to do with minor gaming, so we look at more content-based gaming. The moment we give more impetus to the offshore operators in terms of having a framework that they need to comply with, the same issue that you mentioned about whose collar do you catch? You have feet in the ground, right? That is what is missing today. If I was to look at what the DPDP is, let's just take a simple thing like verifiable consent, right? The reality is that even though the theme of verifiable consent is given in that, the true implementation of it is very difficult. I mean, even if you do sort of implement it through using the DigiLocker, for example, you are going to create a kind of a digital divide. Not every parent's going to be able to, sort of tick the box there. The government realizes this as well. So while the thought process is, whether at the Tamil Nadu government level or the central level, I think what is truly lacking today is that one-stop shop or the one body of law which you can turn to either give impetus to them to be compliant with law and kind of weed out, the bad actors from the good actors, and two, make sure that they're compliant with what is truly in sync with the public policy of the country. And that, in my view, Ramesh, can't really happen till you truly have a central law in place with this theme in mind.
Thanks, Ranjana. And in conclusion, Niyati, you heard all the sides of the story, including the government. Responsible consumption, especially for minors. How do we achieve the balance? And what is your recommendation to the industry in 2 to 3 lines in conclusion?
Now, you say 2, 3 lines. Now, your question says responsible gaming for minors. The moment you say responsible, you say accountability, which needs to agency. Do minors have agency? They do not. Which means that the burden shifts on the other stakeholders. And these other stakeholders are number 1, family, number 2, industry, number 3, government, and lastly, the community. Now, primarily when we say family, what do I mean? As Ranjana rightly pointed out, the mothers, or primarily the parental controls that we talk about. So the first thing to have in place is parental controls. Now, primarily when all these things are in place, for example, industries provide parental controls, they provide setting of mandatory time limits that a minor cannot even begin playing the game until unless a time limit has been set. Now, when we have these limits provided by the platforms themselves, it brings us to the idea that what exactly the stakeholders are doing. So again, what Ranjana had to say that, for example, you have KYC norms. Are they actually being followed? And this was actually being discussed between when we met the Tamil Nadu Online Gaming Authority, where they even rightly pointed out that even when you have a self-regulating structure or a framework at place, do we actually follow it? And that's where the primary crux is. You may have responsible gaming measures, but the question is, are we even implementing it? And even if to what extent are we implementing it? So we have different global frameworks which can guide us to have responsible gaming measures. For example, the Pan-European gaming information, where parents have information as to game ratings, that whether my child should be playing this or not. You have a very interesting policy that UK has, which is GameStop, where parents can go and register their minors, whereby the minors will be not even allowed to enter any gaming platform. So by having these kinds of measures, primarily, industry can allow parents to choose what is good for their minors. Number 1, again, putting a lot of responsibility on the parents. Coming back to the question, do parents have that knowledge? Where the community and the government responsibility comes into picture. Does the government spread enough awareness, number 1? Number 2, does community promote responsible internet habits? So it's a very multifaceted work that is required, rather than imposing responsibilities and trying to catch collar of one person. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
If I could add only one last point related to the conversation that we're just having. When I interact with the industry representatives, I very often, I'm told that they have a very well-rounded code of ethics available. And in fact, I have spent a lot of time going through their code of ethics, plenty of time indeed. And if we implement even 50% of it, we'll be having an ideal world for online gaming industry. And I'm serious. But unfortunately, whatever little bit that we have tried to find out on our own, we were able to kind of very definitely establish that it is mostly existing as of now on paper. Please do come forward and implement. I'm generally a very blunt speaker. And because I wish you all, all well. Ultimately, we have to safeguard this industry. Just having a set of nice code of ethics and not actually enforcing it, actually it will create many issues, including that of confidence, including that of reliability. How much do I rely on what you are saying? Please do come forward. It's very easy for me to enter anybody's KYC and get into and play a game and come out. Lots of things. I have a team which is cracking into your entire code of ethics, and we have so far succeeded everywhere. So please do come forward. I mean, it's not trying to criticize any industry. I'm only making you aware that there is another side of the story. The first and the most important step towards solving any problem is to acknowledge that the problem exists. Let's acknowledge that there is a problem. We can get over it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. And it's heartening to know that he has seen your code of ethics and he believes in it in entirety. And it is the responsibility on the industry to demonstrate to him that they are following it. Exactly, it's their code of ethics. But the fact that you like it indicates that there is a positive way forward, and I request the industry to engage more with Tamil Nadu Gaming Authority. That brings us in conclusion to this session. Thank you all, and thank you, my fellow panelists.